Hi, I'm Nick Palmachado.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. I want to start tonight with the most important story in the world. The Dixie Chicks have changed their name to the Chicks. Ladies and gentlemen, stop the riots, stop the debates, stop the election. We don't even need leaders anymore because racism has been solved. Someone start the mother flippin' slow clap because the Chicks have done it for us. This has been a really weird week for me because I'm actually really bummed with the way everybody's acting, including a lot of people that I know pretty well. I don't know if it's generational, if it's our leaders, if it's social media, if it's the media, or if it's people just valuing their own emotions over reality in a way that I've never seen before in my lifetime. Just because you feel something doesn't make it so. You have to look at the data. You have to be able to ferret out the root cause of something in order to solve it. The current hot button issue is the issue of police and racism. We talked about this last week and cited a lot of statistics, and frankly, I didn't want to hit it again this week, but this dude at my gym that is considered to be kind of a leader there went off this week about how essentially all police are bad. And it kind of threw me and bummed me out. I pushed back and reminded him that he trains all the time with a bunch of cops that are awesome. But he said that jiu-jitsu made them better and that fundamentally cops are bad. I wondered how we could arrive at such an absurd conclusion given that all the evidence that he has available shows quite the contrary. When you parse the data, at best it shows that there's absolutely no widespread problem of police racism. And at worst, it shows that it's less about the race of someone involved and more about their economic situation. In either case, while no one is arguing that policies and procedures can't be improved constantly, the byline that police are fundamentally evil just isn't a reality. It doesn't hold up against any real evidence. And the press seems to be working overtime to show that there is a connection, and everybody seems to be committed to a hard stance regardless of how much or how little they know. Yeah, there's some racist cops. They found a couple of pieces of garbage in Wilmington just this week, and now those guys are rightfully fired. But you simply can't say that because we found one or five or a dozen or even 100 or hundreds of bad police in a group of 800,000 people that most cops are bad. Of the roughly 1,000 people that are killed by police in America every year, only 20 to 40 of them are unarmed. That doesn't mean that they weren't attacking the police unarmed. It simply means they didn't have a weapon. That means that in the other 960 to 980 cases, people had weapons and were actively engaged with the police trying to hurt them. So 20 to 40 unarmed situations. Let's just round that up to 50 and let's use that as the numerator. And for the denominator, let's use all police encounters with people over the course of 1 year in the United States, which is roughly 60 million. So 50 divided by 60 million gives us 0.00008%. That's your chance of getting killed by a cop if you are unarmed. To put that in perspective, you are 171 times more likely to get struck by lightning than to be killed by a police officer unarmed. You are just as likely to be attacked by a shark as to be killed by a cop unarmed. Though to be fair, a cop is more likely to kill you than a shark. So we have to talk about a far more dangerous creature to get to the level necessary to have the same kill level that police have on an unarmed person. And that, of course, my friends, is the cow. You have the same chance of being killed by a cow as you do by a police officer when you're unarmed. Again, I am not saying there isn't room for improvement. We've obviously seen examples over the last couple weeks that show a great deal of need for improvement amongst some individuals. But given the fact that if you are an unarmed person not trying to injure a police officer, your chances of getting killed by a cop are similar to the chances of you getting randomly killed by a cow. it's probably ridiculous to assign 800,000 people doing the job the title of bad person. Would you be comfortable saying all Muslims are terrorists, or even most Muslims are terrorists, given that a small percentage of Muslims are terrorists? Of course not. That would be rightly considered unacceptable. But yet most people are completely comfortable with the worldview of assigning the idea that all police are bad, despite there being such a minuscule percentage of that population that actually is engaged in any wrongdoing whatsoever. Ignoring evidence and shouting from the rafters that cops are bad, evil, should be defunded, whatever, doesn't make you morally superior to anyone else. I actually think it makes you the opposite. I understand that there's emotion around lots of different issues for lots of people around lots of things. I'm not saying you shouldn't feel emotion. But what I am saying is that when you do start to get emotional about something, rather than just dive into it, take a step back and assess the evidence. And to be clear here, I'm not supporting racism in any fashion. I am 100% behind removing all roadblocks to equality for all people, regardless of race, sexual orientation, or gender. What I don't want to do, and what I think is very dangerous, is trying to steamroll anybody that ever throws up their hands and says, hey guys, I'm not sure you're right about this. Turning bright red and yelling at somebody doesn't make you right. The fact that you feel strongly about something doesn't make you right. The fact that you don't like a policy doesn't make you right. To this end, I looked up a little research that the Pew Research Center had done about how partisans look at each other, and the results were unsurprising. About 3/4 of you think that your Republican or Democratic counterparts are closed-minded. About 1/3 of you think that your counterparts are stupid. That's actually better than I expected. Half of you think your counterparts in the other party are immoral. Then I did a poll of my own Twitter followers, which is a pretty even partisan mix, and asked them what they thought of their counterparts. 7% said that the other party was straight evil. Just pure evil. 31% said, no, they're not evil, they're just stupid. 29% said, they're fine as people, they just don't understand reality. And 33% said, nah, they're cool, we just have different opinions. Then I went back to the Pew Research for one more question, and that's how each party looks at itself. 50% of Republicans and 70% of Democrats see their own party as open-minded. Guys, have you heard yourselves? Go look at social media. Take a step back and look at your echo chambers. You, me, we are not smarter than our counterparts in the other party or parties. We're just not. We are not more open-minded. We are not more tolerant. We are not fundamentally better. There are a lot of things that I get emotional about politically, and I try never to jump into the fray when I'm emotional, because every time I do, my cool, calm, and collected friends like to step up to the line and show me every place where I am wrong because I just let my emotions run away. Emotional outbursts feel good. Sending the Twitter mob after somebody that just pissed you off feels good. Canceling somebody for all time by showcasing the worst moments of their character for the whole world to see feels good. For a moment. And then it doesn't. The good guy does the right thing, lifts people up, weathers the hard times, and forges a path forward. But the good guy has to realize that he or she isn't perfect. We can't continue to judge people on a sliding scale where we expect our own failures, faults, and embarrassing moments to be treated with compassion, and we expect everyone else's failures, faults, and embarrassing moments to be the worst thing that's ever happened, that they should pay a penance for all time and be canceled indefinitely. We cannot rake people over the coals in an effort to show how woke we are, or how tough we are, or how reality-focused we are. Everybody is screaming right now about what politicians should be doing, or what our counterparts in other parties should be doing, or where people should be taking a moral stand, or showing that there's a slippery slope to whatever. But the reality is that we can't control politicians, and we can't control other people and how they think and what they do. The only thing we can control is ourselves. It's actually really easy not to be a dick all the time if you try. None of us is always right. If we're reasonable people, our opinions on most things should continue to evolve. But man, if you spend all of your time trying to show that you're morally superior to other people, that you're more knowledgeable, that you're better than, after a while, you're going to start becoming the bad guy. There's nothing wrong with debate, but you have to take some of the spite and the angst and the anger off the top of it. You have to, because otherwise things are going to get out of control. So moving forward, just consider the following. Black lives absolutely matter. I don't appreciate anybody that feels otherwise. But it's also not okay to label most police officers as villains. It's literally the same ignorance wrapped in a different box.
Enough officer speech, Nick. Let's get to the real shit. Various scientists think that we're 5 years away from recreating dinosaurs Jurassic Park style. Apparently there's been some pretty big advances in the chickenosaur, dinosaur-chicken hybrid. Plus they found some pretty good DNA in a dinosaur skull. Normally I'd warn them about scientists not asking about whether or not they could do it, but whether they should do it. But I'll be honest, I just want to fight some dinosaurs. If 2020 is going to take us out, dinosaur fight is going to be the sweetest way to go.
In other news, scientists have just announced that they're able to take human DNA and combine them with monkey DNA in order to create monkeys with larger brains that are craftier, smarter, and more dexterous. Wait, what? Is this real? Are we seriously doubling down with Jurassic Park and Planet of the Apes?
This week, Wall Street signaled an interest in investment in smart robot technology. They stated with COVID-19 reducing human capabilities, it's more important than ever to have smarter, faster, more dexterous robots who can handle manufacturing, medical capabilities, and military infrastructure. So yeah, Terminator 2.
There's a mysterious sand cloud forming in the Sahara Desert that is carrying 800 metric tons of dust to the United States. The clouds could prove dangerous as they reduce visibility and are also likely carrying an evil mummy that is looking for the reincarnated spirit of his lost love.
In what could only be a 2020 news report, the U.S. Department of Justice is charging Army soldier Ethan Meltzer for supplying classified information to a Nazi Satanist group in what would be a mass murder plot. I know that was a lot, so let me say it slower. The U.S. Department of Justice is charging an Army private with giving classified information to a Nazi Satanist group. Sidebar, at what point do you go, self? Being a Nazi just isn't evil enough. Let's add a splash of Satanism to that. Meltzer used a messaging app to send his unit's movements to members of groups that were anarchist, neo-Nazi, neo-fascist, Karen, and anti-Semitic. The group is called the Order of the Nine Angels and is based out of the UK, or as they like to call it, the Order of the Nine Angels. Meltzer wanted the information he supplied to be passed on to jihadist terrorists. He recognized that he could be killed overseas and hoped for an attack on his unit and apparently had no problem with his own life being taken in the process. When asked about this, he responded with some crazy, convoluted quote that's too long to even be said here. The only part that matters is that his intention was to cause another 10 years of war in the Middle East. Don't worry, bro. We're gonna do that no matter what.
You thought we dodged 2020 bingo? Well, if you had Korean War Part 2, fill in a square. North Korea has been going hard in the paint the last 2 weeks, first blowing up a liaison office, and now planning to drop thousands upon thousands of pamphlets full of propaganda into South Korea. Side note, I wonder what ancient technology they're going to use for that distribution. I'm hoping for a trebuchet, but I'm not holding my breath. Both sides have been doing this for years, but the South reportedly stopped doing it in 2010. Additionally, North Korea's embassy in Moscow has reported that it's going to use nuclear weapons on the United States. They are quoted as saying, "A new round of the Korean War will add a particularly sensational event to the history of mankind, which will put an end to another empire whose name is the United States." All I have to say is that North Korean leaders are talking a lot of shit at a time when despotic leaders are dropping like flies.
Well, it seems that after 2 weeks in existence, the Chaz is getting the chop. Following 2 major shootings and a list of other crimes, including rape, robbery, and arson, Mayor Jenny Durkin has finally seen fit to slowly dismantle the Cha Zone. She was quoted in saying, "It's distracting from peaceful change." Yeah, after a 19-year-old was shot dead and another guy was shot and survived, that's one way to put it, I guess. The man who was shot and lived now wants to sue the police, but we'll get into that later. Mayor Durkin is supposedly working with protesters to reintroduce police into the area. And I'm sure that our friendly neighborhood warlord, Roz, would love to hear what she has to say. Her actions have drawn the scorn of many, including President Trump, who said that Seattle should just retake the zone, which unsurprisingly is shared by everybody. But the plus-sized, gender-fluid identifying singer hasn't sung for CHOP just yet. While many protesters have begun to trickle out of the CHOP, lots of other people have decided to stay and dig in. The leadership issues still abound, and many people think it's just going to get more violent as it goes on. But if the Chaz Chop is to be no more by the time the next BNN comes around, we just wanted to say so long, and thanks for all the fish. And by fish, we mean the rapid and total breakdown of societal norms into a harsh police state, fighting the perceived advances of a harsh police state.
A Chaz Chop activist, DeJuan Young, was shot this week while on volunteer Chaz Chop security duty. After he was shot, other volunteer security members kept the police from entering Chaz Chop in order to get him out. Now Young wants to sue the Seattle police for not providing an escort to the paramedics to get to him. He also claims that the attack was racially motivated and that somebody called him a racial slur before shooting him in the stomach. We here at BNN rated that a 3.5 Jussie on the Jussie meter. Support for Young has been sparse, especially after a reporter stated that Young attacked him, smashed his phone, and kicked him out after covering Chaz. Young does, however, have a GoFundMe to pay for his medical bills. We don't even have to write the jokes at BNN anymore. They just tell themselves. Man acting as police to stop the police from getting in because he hates the establishment sues the police for not being able to get in because his group kept them out, and then asks the establishment for help. I don't even know what to say. It appears that in addition to keeping the police out of Chaz, they've also managed to keep out the irony police. Hey-o!
If you thought the best way to escape boredom during the coronavirus outbreak was to get outside, get some sun, put down a blanket, have a picnic, maybe even a nap, listen to some tunes, and soak in the rays, you might be right. However, if there's a fully grown bear directly outside your house, you should probably stay inside. 19-year-old Sierra Madre from Southern California was taking a nap and listening to what I can only imagine is Jason Mraz. Upon waking up, she was promptly attacked by a bear. Props to Sierra, though, who didn't act like your typical teenage Gen Z girl and trying to TikTok her way through being eaten alive. Instead, she decided it wasn't her time to go and decided to beat the shit out of the bear with her laptop. Sierra was able to do enough damage with her laptop to scare the bear away, and while she did get some scratches and some cuts, she deemed them all pretty bearable. Police's first suspicion was that Sierra was actually smoking up a doobie in the woods and that this was one of Smokey the Bear's cousins and was just trying to spread awareness. We reached out to Smokey for comment, but he was born in 1944 and unfortunately has been dead for quite some time now.
Patagonia, North Face, REI, and hundreds of their brands have recently announced that they're pulling all of their ads out of Facebook because they believe that Facebook spreads misinformation and hate. But they're only pulling out through July, so this is more virtue signal than it is anything else. Zuckerberg has previously been pressured many times around his stance for political advertisements, but he had this to say. Show me the money! There's no question that Facebook's ability to target customers is unparalleled. Will this affect REI? Who knows? Only time will tell. I want you to know that right now, I'm watching you. No, seriously, I have all your data.
The Trump campaign stated last week that the audience list for a planned TULSA rally had reached 1 million attendees. When the event kicked off, however, only about 6,200 people showed up, the results of which were claimed to be due to the efforts of Gen Z TikTokers who flooded the reservation lists with fake names to screw over Trump. While the inflated numbers may be partly true, it was already safe to say that 1 million people weren't going to be showing up to an arena in Tulsa that can only hold about 19,000 people. Additionally, the Trump campaign stated that they weren't actually reservations, that it was a first-come, first-served basis anyways. They said that no one on the staff expected 1 million people to show up to the arena and that TikTokers need to get off their high horse. The low numbers can most likely be attributed to COVID-19, and with 1 million people showing up on the list, people who actually wanted to come probably shied away from it, seeing as it was an indoor arena. The more concerning part is that internet goers made a concerted effort to sabotage and spread misinformation for the Trump campaign. If I'm not mistaken, isn't this exactly what the Democrats rallied behind at the beginning of the Trump presidency? If it's one thing that people hate unilaterally, it's hypocrites. Just throwing that out there.
A European tech company called Wirecard is facing a pretty hefty scandal this week because it's missing $2 billion. A payment processing firm founded 20 years ago, it was once regarded as one of the most promising companies in Europe. Now, however, the CEO has resigned and some executives have straight up fled the country. Before resigning, however, the CEO did state that he thought that Wirecard was the victim of a massive fraud case. It's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out.
Keeping it real gone wrong news. A muscled-up police officer with a substantial TikTok following challenged Black Lives Matter and Antifa activists to settle their gripes with police in the boxing ring. His caption in his initial post read, "Which one of you BLM or Antifa guys want to get in the ring with this cop?" Here's the thing though, and I want to emphasize this. Muscles don't mean you can fight. So without knowing this guy's background and totally judging a book by its cover, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this guy's not the most qualified boxer. Talking smack to a broad audience, however, does have its drawbacks. What the officer most likely expected was a slew of stick-figured soft bodies to hurl insults behind their sticky keyboards and be done with it. Unfortunately, the call-out went viral though, and it was answered by a number of pro boxers, NFL linemen, and one NFL nose tackle who said, "I want that smoke like a chimney." The backpedaling that ensued was swift and mighty. 2 days after the initial video, he put out another video chastising people for calling him out to fight when he didn't do anything to these people. They're acting like babies. As we all know, however, the internet is unrelenting and unforgiving. We didn't deep dive the comments in response, but the most notable from the pro athletes were humiliating to say the least. Among the boxers was top 3 prospect in the world, Devin Haney, who would absolutely demolish that dude and most people in any division. All the social media tough guy garbage aside, I am completely for anyone who can't find peace in civil discourse to engage in mutual combat within the squared ring. In my opinion, there are a lot of people shouting the loudest who have never been punched in the face, and it shows. I fully support returning to an age where we can settle a dispute with honor instead of turning to canceling, doxing, or turning guns against fellow Americans. Having a good scrap can build essential character traits, relieve stress, and ironically, form some pretty strong bonds between combatants. So what's up? Do I need to start a GoFundMe? Let's do this.
Matt, boxing doesn't solve everything. Sometimes you also have to submission grapple.
Stand up and fight like a man.
Fall upon me to your doom! Anyway, President Trump's niece, Mary Trump, has just announced the release of her new book, Too Much and Never Enough: How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man. Oddly, the book is about Tom Selleck, which we did not expect. Just kidding. The book is a tell-all about the president's financial affairs and probably a whole bunch of other shit that isn't endearing. Trump told Axios that his niece is not allowed to publish her book. The publication of the book would violate a non-disclosure agreement that family members had. The Trump family's lawsuit against the book was dismissed by a New York City judge Thursday afternoon. One of the worst accusations in the book from Mary Trump is that in 1999, when Donald Trump's father was dying of dementia, he and his siblings used undue influence to get $20 million. The book then goes on to say how Trump's niece and nephew sued him over the ordeal. As a response to this, President Trump allegedly withdrew financial assistance from his infant great-nephew who had cerebral palsy. I bet this year's Trump family reunion is gonna be bonkers. A Florida man is behind bars after attempting to steal an airplane at the New Smyrna Municipal Airport. His reason? To visit his girlfriend in California. Oh, and he was carrying over a pound of weed, according to the New Smyrna Beach Police Force, which I imagine looks just like Baywatch. Trust us though, this story gets better. On Saturday, officers were first alerted to a stolen vehicle at the airport. While investigating, they were flagged down by a man on the side of the road that said the stolen vehicle was his. He originally gave a ride to a man who offered him $1,000, but then was given the boot. In the back of the recovered truck, they found a cell phone, a grinder, and a scale. At the same time, a different officer was alerted by a flight instructor that there was a strange man with a blue bag crouching on top of the wing of an airplane. According to one report, the man with the blue bag asked the flight instructor how to fly the plane. Because it's that easy, folks. By the time the officers hit the tarmac, the man had worked his way into the right seat of the aircraft. When the officers approached them, he then nonchalantly asked them if they knew how to fly a plane. Hey, if you're gonna be a bear, be a grizzly bear. When that plan backfired, he then decided to jump out of the emergency window, which landed him harshly on the tarmac, surrounded by a giant group of officers and nowhere to go. He was detained, and on his person was found a meth pipe, just as God intended. With the world so topsy-turvy right now, it's great that Florida Man can keep us grounded. And with that, I'm Nick Palmisano.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as the news you're getting already. And next week, folks, we're probably not going to cover the bad news. We're going to give you a top 10 things that are great about America for the 4th of July. Because no matter what crazy shit happens in the next week, we need to put something positive out there for once.
So if you guys have any input on what your favorite best things about America are that you want us to put in BNN, let us know in the comments.
You can always shop on rangerup.com using code BNN for 25% off. Have a great weekend, guys.